Hello there, hello there. I am here, and it is already the middle of January, the third week of this, and no joke, we are still going to be doing albums that came out in 2025, which I missed. Ones that were in the top of other people's lists, things of that nature. Now, I do want to make it very clear, though, this is the final week of that. Last Friday, there were some new releases. There probably were more new releases than I realized, but because it was still the holiday period, I did not see many people doing any discussing. It was kind of just, I think, this Friday there is going to be more of an influx, but it also kind of feels like this Friday is going to be pretty quiet as well. Regardless, there have been some new releases. I probably will go back, if need be, and look at some stuff from the last week of December. But the reason that this is, as far as I'm concerned, the last week of looking at misses from 2025 is simply because there really isn't that much left. I actually listened to a lot of albums that people had very high regard for this week. Probably, we've got 10 albums this week, and I probably listened to 15 or 16 or maybe even more, and either they weren't really that worth mentioning. Like, I don't know why you would have put them in your top of the year type of list. Like, that feels like a big question mark for me. Or they are albums which just, by and large, I did not think were very good. I get why people would think that they're clever or, I don't know, edgy or something, but yeah. So I'm, at this point in time, I feel like I've already, not to say that the releases this week are bad. There are some really good ones this week. There are some good ones, but it also feels like this is kind of just also what's left over from the list that I did not get around to before. So, like I said, there are still some good releases this week. I don't want to downplay this and make it sound like it's going to be just an awful week. It's not. There are some good ones here, but yeah. So as it is, this is going to be the last week of albums from 2025, which I missed. And as it has been for the last 2 weeks as well, there is no real order to this. Just kind of albums get better as they go, in my opinion. There's also one EP. I'm starting with that one. I haven't quite formulated how I'm going to delineate releases this next year, but I do feel like I need to clearly define, at least in my eyes, the definition of an EP, the definition of one of those like short TikTok style albums where you have 12 tracks and it's only 22 minutes long or something dumb like that, and then an honest to God full length. So I'm going to have to come up with 3 categories. I think that'll just help me keep things a little bit straighter as well, because I do think, like, I've been going through and listening to a lot of the music from 2025, trying to come up with my own, not rankings necessarily, but, you know, quarter by quarter, best of. I got the second quarter basically done, blah, 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 blah. But I do run into a situation where there are albums which are 22 minutes long and have 8 tracks, but they don't really feel like they should be going up against an album that is 10 tracks long and 38 minutes long. Like, there is a substantial difference between the numbers there. Even though one of them is only 2 tracks longer, it is effectively 50% more music. And I know quality over quantity type of thing, but still. So anyway, a lot of rambling here at the beginning, but that's just kind of by and large due to the fact that, yeah, it's all stuff that I do want to get out and discuss, because I think it's, I don't know, if you're here watching the music stuff and it's something, Anyway, like I said, we got 10 albums. I'm just going to get into it. Let me close this. And So, up first, let me go ahead and get this all set up here. All right, we transition. And we're going to start with the one that, again, I am going to call an EP. It is under 20 minutes long. That is my general cut mark. So this is the album, or the EP, только сейчас, by the group or the artist Парень, призрак. It is probably more of an album than an EP. So this is also part of the reason I wanted to discuss my criteria at the beginning there, because it does feel more like an album than a lot of the slightly longer releases do in situations. Regardless, this is 8 tracks of very well done 60s era garage rock. Has a bit of the surf and psychedelia mixed in there, and pop from the 1960s era as well, kind of just thrown into the mix for good measure. There are a few effects here and there that feel a bit modern, specifically certain sounds that feel a bit more modern than the 1960s, but they also don't feel completely out of place. It's just a very short release, and it does go down very easy all in one setting. So I'm just going to go ahead and play a little bit here. We'll get right to it.
Кого только целовать, а с кем ты хочешь переспать. Ты самая красивая девочка в этой деревне. И если ты не знаешь, кого выбрать, позвони мне. Но только не сейчас. Но только не сейчас.
For a throwback sound as well, I think it's done really well. It has that fuzz that you would expect it to have from that era. But we'll jump to it. All right, so I mean, there's 8 tracks. You heard a bit of 2 of them. It's kind of that same energy, that same sound throughout the whole thing. I mean, there are a few tracks that alter the formula just a little bit, but by and large, it goes down very quickly. It's over realistically before you know it, and yeah, it's enjoyable all the way through. It's just a fun little release there. So that is только сейчас, a bit of an EP in my opinion, by the artist, the group Парень, призрак. I also realized that in the description I did not put the release information, so I will have to do that once the stream is over. So if you hear something right now that you like, if you're watching the stream, I'm assuming that most people will be watching this after the stream goes live, but if you are watching it while it goes live and there's something that you want to listen to in the future and you don't know Russian, because these are all in Russian, obviously, maybe just make a note of which number it is in order, because obviously the links will then be in order. Moving on, though, to the second release, we have Балтийский хаус by the artist Juravlove, Juravlove. It's a play on the artist's last name, which is Juravlove. Juravlove. Anyway, not too much to talk about here. I just want to. It's just very by the books house. It's a classic house sound out of St. Petersburg, but it's got these really laconic and laid back vocals over the tracks. All of them are kind of going about these like just good vibes and fun things. The whole track about skateboarding, so obviously like I gotta call that one out. It just feels like a nice dance party atmosphere, but also not the one that you would expect in like a warm weather, but the type of dance party that you would expect in the cooler white nights in St. Petersburg in the summer. So I'm gonna. Oh, and also the album artwork, pretty awesome because it's a. Why is it not opening? Why is nothing opening? We'll give it a moment, and then I'll have to. I'll just reload the page now. The album artwork is a reference to the Baltica beer label, which is also from St. Petersburg. Why is nothing playing? Well, this is interesting. Give me a second here. I do not know what's going on here with Spotify and why it has decided to misbehave or whatever. I don't know. This is some technical difficulties, I guess. I don't really know how else to describe that. Okay. Well, yeah, it's not playing. Just the audio is not playing at all. So we might be going over to Yandex until I can figure out what the hell is going on with maybe it's my headphones. I don't know. Spotify shows that stuff is playing, but then no, it's not my headphones. So it is something's going on with Spotify. That's cool, I guess. I will in my defense too, not in my defense, but I have been just having an atrocious time with the internet over the last few days. I do not know. Let's be real. In Russia in 2026, if something is not working connected to the internet, you have to assume that it is not your fault, that it is on the government end. So, yep, I guess we are going over to Yandex Music, which is unfortunate because I hate Yandex Music, but don't worry. You will be hearing more about that as we go. I'll actually talk a little bit about why I really dislike Yandex Music too as we go further into this. So this will actually be a nice... I made that video last week about the snow, and most of the commentary was from smooth brain Neanderthals, I guess, who... thought I was complaining for 20 minutes straight, which, again, either they have the patience of a toddler or they don't understand English very well, which is just like, then go watch something else. Or they only watched like the 4 minutes where I was critiquing snow removal text. Anyway, it's not important. I'm going to complain about Yandex Music. I'm not going to whine. Their actual honest-to-God complaints. But, yeah. Enough of this. I will get back to the music because I am gonna be clicking back and forth between the the Yandex page and I know most of these are favorited, and that's just because I forgot to unfavorite some of them, but in some cases, I actually do have specific ones that I want to recall. But yes, getting into the music now. I think you can hear this, right? The music is audible now. Let me know if you can hear everything, okay? Would be much appreciated. First complaint about Yandex Music, it's very difficult to control where in the track you are. So, I mean, like, lots of just weird skateboarding references thrown in there. Obviously, that one clicked well with me. Obviously, also DJ Stonic 1917 is on the album, which he was kind of one of the bigger electronic names in 2025. So him showing up here is also, I think, very simple, very by the numbers type of house music. But you know what? There's something to be said about house music. There's something to be said about a genre which kind of, obviously it has changed over the years. There are different variations of it, but like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of thing. So, and there is something very northern capital, very St. Petersburg about this sound. I don't know if it's in just the sort of cooler sounding synths.
Feeling real good, baby.
But just good energy. I'm trying to remember which other one has got Juravlove sharing his advice. I mean, almost certainly this one. Yeah.
С больной да на здоровый, в толпе молва идет, и кто-то пиво наливает, а кто-то отдает и танец, масс под хаус мьюзик, вибрируют тела. Жаль, не было вчера, ну как ты, Петя, как дела?
So yeah, that is the album Bалтийский House by the artist Juravlove. Just like, again, a nice, really chill, laid back house release from, I believe, April. Came out in like the first half of the year in 2025. But I think that's the only electronic that we have this week, and you know, it's a nice representation there. So, all right, now moving on, we got to go to. I'm gonna have to type everything in. Blah blah blah. We have the album Piri и раны by the artist Krovostok. People were very strongly divided on this album online. It came out in early December, by the way. This is actually one of those that I tried to get to before the end of the year, hustle and bustle, but I just did not. And ended up being not a huge problem because it did wind up on a number of people's best of the year lists, which I don't think I would have put it there personally. But anyway, when it came out, there was a lot of discussion. Some people said it was just like weak, just did not hold up to Krovostok's older releases, but other people were saying it's a great group. This is a return to their form. It's their first album in like 4 years or something like that. It's a group that has remained true to their sound over all of the years. I don't know. I never listened to Krovostok before, even though their name is impossible to not know if you follow the Russian music scene. This is like hip hop. This is like Russian rap, but in that loose underground sense of the word. A lot of the text comes across as spoken word. The rhyme scheme here isn't all that important. It's more about rhythm, deadpan delivery, just kind of the weird ass metaphors that are getting thrown around here, of which there are plenty. There's also plenty of that sort of old head, older individual reflection, but there are some really good doses of storytelling, not in the traditional hip hop storytelling way, but in definitely a very unique sort of way. Now, I will say non-Russian speakers are probably not going to find a lot here, unfortunately, just because the music itself is kind of oddball. For that factor alone, it is maybe worth a listen. You could spin a few tracks and kind of see what that is. But if you understand Russian, you're going to get more out of this. Just keep in mind that there is a fair amount of colorful language is how we'll put it. But there definitely are some fun and interesting tracks here if you're willing to give it like the first track, I think you kind of get an idea of that weird off-kilter energy that we have here.
Когда хочется хоть что-то понять, а понять вот вообще ничего нельзя, тогда ты встань и иди в столовую жрать. Спроси, и пища расскажет тебе дохуя. Все будет так, сначала будет суп. О супе известно, что он мил и туп. Супец тебя скорее развеселит. Он будет гнать, он пургомет. Работает суп только на смех.
So, like, if you can't understand Russian, you're just kind of along for the ride. Even if you do understand Russian, like, he's talking about eating lunch and understanding the world through the food that you eat, which is, I tried trying to figure out what he was talking about. I'm sure there are some metaphors there that went over my head too, but, and then you have this track, which is about Lenin on Red Square waking back up, like in the Simpsons episode, and, like taking back over the country and setting things straight, I guess.
Короче, шуршит, чуваки. Гравий шуршит, потому что чует пизденыш беду. Знает, что город в опасности, раз по нему я иду.
But the delivery is like very
Я ж должен не тут лежать.
Very specific.
Как типа, блядь, положено, иначе не сдобровать. Я же нахуй Владимир Ленин. Я же Ленин Владимир Ильич. И вот я проявился из тени, прям как на Пасху кулич. Что-то меня... И если взять из-за всего, бля, резко сорвать коросту, то все охуеют, насколько можно вообще охуеть. Понятно, я не могу слишком вдаваться в детали. Темка такая, лучше о ней не пиздеть, а молчать. Хотя меня не хуёвенько так от инфы распирает. Но я ж не дурак, поэтому только могу намекать. Мне надо выжить, чтобы во всем разобраться, чтобы отдуплить на все 100, откуда, бля, ноги растут. До иллюминатов каждый может легко доебаться, а я ищу настоящих плохих, и это опасный маршрут.
So, yes, very eclectic release, especially one that's... again, it is ostensibly hip-hop, a rap release, but it feels very avant-garde in its own way. And again, I've never heard Krovostok before, so maybe this is one of those things where this is their bread and butter. But it is an interesting listen. Again, if you don't know Russian, you don't understand Russian, then you're probably not going to get much out of this. But if you do have a good grasp of the language, or if you're a speaker of the Russian language, then, I mean, yeah, open up genius.com and check out the lyrics. I find it's a little bit easier, at least for me personally, to follow along with what's going on. But yes, this is the album Piri, rаны. Rаны is kind of a thing that they talk about later in the album. But yeah, Piri, rаны by the group Krovostok. Up next, we actually have a group that we have seen before. I actually talked about in the autumn. This is the group CUPSIZE, and this is their album from April, моих, легких, выросли, цветы. Yeah, I talked about their second release, like I said, in the autumn, but they were already on my radar at that point in time because when this album came out in April, there was a lot of discussion about it. I do actually prefer their release that came out in the second half of the year more than this one because the sound was a little bit more varied, although there are hints of that change in their sound already on this release. But the core sound, the one that garnered them their popularity, that sort of Ty Segall meets pop punk, that sound, and it feels like it was recorded in a one-room apartment somewhere in Juralove, where it just stinks of teenage boys, and it's just like so baked into the. I appreciate the Agatha Christie recommendation. I'll try to, if you give me a specific album, I'll give a listen to it for next week. I know who Agatha Christie are, the group. Just they're kind of old heads. Anyway, yeah, if you have a recommendation for an album, just drop it down there. But yeah, anyway, CUPSIZE has that very like hormonal teenage energy and just energy, and I think you can still feel that here. Even though I did prefer their second release later in the year, there's still a lot of that here. We're gonna go with this one. You could argue it's got like the garage rock sound, but this specific sound just feels like a variation of like Mikhail Cronin, Ty Segall, the OCs. Like, that sound and energy is the core of the album. It's not every single track, but if you like this sound, that's what this is. Cheers. Greetings everyone who's tuning in. But like I said, on this album, you could already hear certain tracks which alluded to and sort of showed that the release that was to come later in the year was going to be not necessarily more dialed back, but it was not going to be as raw energy. It obviously still has that garage sound, that very lo-fi, and the energy is still there beneath the surface. Gravitation, I'm not really quite sure what you mean by end level there, but We've got the additional instrumentation here with the saxophone joining in. So it's not so simple. Like I said, there are hints on this album of the next step that the group was going to take with their release in неуравновешенные летные песни on this album. But, so yeah, anyway, really good album. Got a lot of good energy. It is very sort of teenage. And yes, the album is в моих легких выросли цветы, and the group is CUPSIZE, which is an artist that we have run into before. Okay, up next we have got, I'm going to try to type their name in Latin letters, and we got it. Peremotka is the group, and the album we are looking for is Zelёный Lуч. Yeah, there are a few sounds that happen across this album here. I gotta stop to for a sec. Gravitation, I don't like just grunge. I'm not really sure what you're getting at here. You're gonna have to give me more of an explanation. So in the chat, just let me know what you're trying to say. I don't know if these are albums or whatever. But anyway, moving on. With this album, there are a few key sounds that you're going to hear across it. The first one is going to be post-punk, just right off the bat. But on the heels of that is that retro AM radio rock gold, that kind of nostalgic rock sound. But all of that is then refracted through the musical sensibilities of more modern Russian indie music. In short, there's just a lot of nostalgic energy across the course of this album, but it never feels like the group is just simply attempting to lose themselves in the past. It's just more like them kind of revisiting maybe musical memories from their childhood, or sounds like it's kind of like that older, fuzzier, hazier sound. I'm not starting with the first track because I feel like the post-punk on the first track is a little... like you can still hear it here. And it is recognizable throughout the album, but I feel like on the first track it's just like not too overwhelming, but it's just kind of a... Just got a lot of good energy. And really, it's not anything super inventive or something that like I've just never heard before, but it's solid all the way through. It's got good energy, and there are different songs where they do add in different elements. I gotta jump into this one. We're gonna have a problem with Yandex now too. Is that what we're doing? I swear to God, the internet these days. Are we for real right now? Jesus H. I think this is probably gonna be the last track that I highlight. There are others I would like to, but because I can't evidently jump around in the tracks, that is a bit frustrating. Zabie Lerechka is the female artist singing here, and she didn't put out. I think she put out an EP last year. I didn't get around to it. Maybe she put out two. I don't know. I did give a quick listen to it. She is one of those artists that I do hope puts out a full length or at least another EP in 2026, because I feel like I missed her releases in 2025. She's got a nice voice. And I feel like the songs that I heard from her before too are quite pleasant as well. Обоюдно. All right, one last track. Yeah, I got Zaggy book pulled up on my laptop. I'll throw them into the to listen category list for next week. Anyway, yeah, I think this is a good album. I really like this album. It was one that again, the first track, because it just felt like a lot of post-punk type of stuff, and there's a lot of post-punk in Russia just forever and ever. That's the, I guess, go-to default guitar music, it feels like, anymore. So on the first track, I was kind of not really sure, but it was one of those where after I got beyond that, I realized that there's a lot more going on in this album, and I don't know, it's just a nice mix of sounds. Like I said, not anything that I've never heard before, but just a nice, pleasant album all the way through. So that is the group Peremotka, and the album is Zelёный Луч. And then, again, we have to, I guess I'm just going all, I'm going all in on Yandex Music today. I really hope this is not a thing for the future. We are into the group Ant. I don't know how they want that read. The album is Счастье. I really don't have too much to say about this. It's psychedelic kind of stoner rock that really, really just unabashedly wants to sound like it's from the 1990s. But over the course of the album, it cannot hide that it has very strong roots in the indie bedroom pop sound. The artist here behind this project is the former founder of the indie group Verbluds, who I had never listened to, but I do remember seeing them like on Afisha and other sort of hipster-esque music festivals back in the day. I don't think Verbluds is around anymore, but anyway, it's just a very cool album. I don't think there was a single like bad song on it. It just got like some good energy. I actually want to jump into the one that I think has a lot of the 90s sound in it, sort of towards the end here. But yeah, of course, we got a flute, so it's not like straight 90s, 90s.
На стеклах рисует рыжую гладь. Вечер растоптанный желанием спать. Кто-то, наверное,
I also like the album artwork. It's kind of...
мы пропускаем не беспокойно.
It's just weird enough, right?
Кто-то летает не
I have questions. I don't really care to ask them, but it's kind of like, what?
свой старый дом догорать. Рядом стреляют фонтаны черной водой. И это все чувствуешь ты, не кто-то другой. Вечер покажет мне.
Like, you can hear the 90s alt rock here, right? Like, we'll get another little taste here. Just... I mean, I did lead with the description of sort of psychedelic stoner rock, and maybe it would be a better way to say it's 90s rock that is dressed in psychedelic stoner rock, or psychedelic stoner rock dressed in a kind of 90s sound. It's equal parts here. All right. So you can hear here a little bit more of the psychedelic and the stoner rock. A little bit more front and center. I'll cut it off there. I think it's kind of clear. There is, I don't, that's as best as I can describe it. You got psychedelic, you got the stoner rock, you got the 90s influence. There are moments of that indie bedroom twee type of sound as well. It's a good album. It's just like a good album. If you like kind of any of those genres, you're gonna find something. Maybe not the bedroom pop twee type of sound that's not here as obviously, but if you like those other things, very solid album, good from start to finish. Yeah, give it a listen. That is Счастье by the group ANT. Ant, I don't know how to pronounce. I'm assuming we're going with letters. So up next, we have, and now we are going to enter into Wyatt complains about Yandex Music. We have the album S прочностью нитки by the group Megapolis. Megapolis. Sorry, Jesus Christ. Megapolis. Now, where's my complaint here? Well, I want to, before we get to the music, we go to the albums, and you can see. All right, so we're looking, and we're looking specifically for S прочностью нитки. There is the deluxe version. Now, Why do I not like this? And why do I hate this every single goddamn time Yandex Music does it? Because the deluxe version has a bunch of fucking tracks with the artists talking about it. Don't get me wrong, I think it's great if you want to hear more about the creative process of an album that you really, really like. I think it's great to have the option of listening to the deluxe version of the album. However, Yandex Music doesn't give you the option. If you want to listen to this album on Yandex Music, you have to listen between tracks to half a minute to sometimes like a minute worth of, maybe it's never a minute, sometimes it feels like it. You have to listen to them, yeah, it is a minute. You have to listen to them chatter on about the music. And if you want to listen to the music, it's basically like if you had a DVD of a film that you really enjoyed, but you could only ever watch the director's cut. You would chuck that shit out the window after like the first or second time, because sometimes you just want to watch the damn movie and sometimes you just want to listen to the goddamn album. So, I hate Yandex for this. Why they don't have this as a separate option, why they don't have an option for you to turn it on or off, I don't know. But Yandex has this whole thing where it's like, if you sign up for Yandex Music, you get access to the deluxe version of the album, which is a goddamn punishment if you actually want to enjoy the music. So, good job for over fucking engineering shit as usual, Yandex. Anyway, music here. Let's talk about that. This album was born out of an improv session from 2021, and then over the last few years, the album took shape around those demos. The result is something that feels very jazzy and improv at the core, but the music is built around this very... the music that they built around that improv core is very loose. It feels a lot like post-rock. It feels kind of cinematic. It almost feels like a soundtrack at times. And then there is... not on every single track, but a lot of tracks have lyrics and text that go over them, but it's not sung for the most part. It's almost spoken word. And welcome in the story. Ibrahim, welcome as well. The vocalist is not my favorite. He has a very specific voice, but it's also because this is a group that's very, very old. Megaполис is, I guess, like 30 years around as a group, and the guy who is the vocalist has been doing it for 30 years. He is now 65, so his voice is a little aged, it's a little weak, and it sounds like a 65-year-old man. That said, for example, on one of the last tracks of the album, he's doing this whole reflecting on life and death and the universe, and it feels really good there because you have this voice that is wizened and reflects the topic that's being discussed. So it does it. In other situations, it is a little weak, but I don't want to like harp on the vocals here. I do want it to, man, I honestly don't remember which. I also, if you can, I mean, I've got the, the first part of this album, again, this looks like there's 300,000 tracks here, but it's because of the deluxe edition. I would say I prefer the second half a little bit more. It does get a little bit more post-rocky and more cinematic, but Ibrahim, I'll get to your comment question in just a second.
Бекицере кофе под щекою стол. Почти все ее слезы попадали в кофе то.
I don't know if this means anything to anybody too, but the magazine Snob declared this was their album of the year, which kind of feels appropriate, but...
Кого здесь нет? Она носит его старый свитер с собой. веселят несчастье, но где любовь? Она начинает его, обняв. Реки замерли, звезды погасли.
Like the vocals here, again, this is like a good, but like, it kind of all works together.
И то
It's definitely not album of the year material in my book. I mean, that's snob, I guess, but cinematic, kind of post-rock, very spacious, but you can also feel that improv core, just how it would have been a group of musicians kind of screwing around in a studio, just kind of playing with some ideas. Now, I do think one of the best tracks is the one with the guest here, Anton Belyaev, who does the like Love or L-A-B. I don't know if it's Lab or Love, but I think his appearance on this album is probably like the strongest track, all things said and done. But I still would recommend giving this album a listen. Like I said, vocals, like I hate to say it, but you do kind of just, not that you start to ignore them, but you kind of start to tune them out. At least I did. I don't know. I wish they were a little bit further down in the mix. But the other thing that's kind of nice about this album too, if you're not listening to it on Yandex, where you don't have to listen to the deluxe version and you can just listen to the songs, is that you can see the first track, Yeniche, and the final one, they're the same. So the album is one of those where it does allow you to, if you have it on repeat, it does loop back around to the beginning, which is like part of their whole idea behind the album as well too. Very, I don't know, very artistic, I guess.
Писанной и большим-большим таинством.
So it is kind of a slow burn of an album. You can see again on the I just closed the Spotify one, but let me pull Spotify back up. A number of the tracks are relatively long, right? It's a mix, but yeah, I would recommend just giving it a shot. Like I said, again, I keep coming back to it, but it is the one sticking point for me, and I think it's one of those. I was listening to this with my wife, and she was not a huge fan of the vocalist either. But I do think if you can get around that or accept it as part of the instrumentation, if you will, as part of the formula, then it's an interesting listen. Maybe not something that I would come back to again and again and again. Probably not something that I would put in my top picks of the year of 2025. But it's an album that I think it's worth at least one spin. So, okay, we move on. Okay, to группа and the album Кража личности. Now, most of the discussion about this album was connected to how it was basically a complete 180 from the sound of the of the group's last release in 2024. But I'm guessing since you watching and listening probably didn't listen to Gruppa Il's release in 2024, and I certainly didn't listen to it, then we're just going into this completely fresh. Even then, this is kind of a darker, deconstructed electronic sound, but it is married together overall with ideas structure-wise and occasionally instrumentally from indie rock. There are times on this album it felt like Kid A from Radiohead, or the Russian artist Delphine is one of those comparisons. It's very easy to make. I personally was simplifying this as kind of like Animal Collective when they started experimenting more heavily with electronics, meets Dan Deacon, plus moments of Bon Iver around the 22 A Million era, or Sufjan Stevens' The Age of Ads, something like that. The idea of the album is about the individual in the modern world, in our heads and our online personas, and how people think about us and how they remember us, and like kind of where we as individuals all exist. So this kind of indie electronic, it feels at home here. I honestly have to, yes, okay.
Память рисуется белым по белому, от крайнего к первому городовой взлетает и расправит железные перья.
I mean, Ibrahim, yeah. In any bank, if you want like a good exchange rate, you can check banki.ru, and they should have rates available. But I mean, they're all kind of the same everywhere. Just any bank.
Певчие птицы по солнцу поссорятся, кирки вздымают кристальную пыль, ведь вечность укрыта чешуёю бессонницы, пленкой сказки так похожи на быль. Сок проливается, сладкое горе, им окропит и тебя, и меня.
Do I need to be liked? Absolutely not. I like to be liked. I enjoy being liked. I have to be liked. But it's not like this compulsive need to be liked. Like, I need to be praised.
So
I mean, like, again, dark, electronic, indie. It's somewhere in that nebulous description. I do have to point out, I really like the album artwork. It's one of those things that you really want to have a large image to look at, because you can see there's all sorts of stuff kind of scrawled in the margins, and these oddball images, the Tower of Babylon, and like Cthulhu type, the what looks like the Sistine Chapel. Yeah, it's a very engaging piece of artwork. And I think it also fits the sound of the album, like things that are recognizable but also feel a product of like some sort of distortion. Ibrahim, he's not talking to you. If you need to change money, just go to the bank. That's the easiest situation there. End of story. I do want to talk about AI music at the end here, so I think I'm glad you brought that up. Again, dark indie electronic music. It's not fully electronic music. It's not fully indie music. It is at that juncture between the two of them, and I think you might even make a comparison to Moo Juice. Again, there are a lot of references you can make with this sound. It is an interesting one. It is actually a pretty interesting album. I would give it a shot. And yeah. Anyway, that is the album Кража личности by the gruppa Il. And we are coming up to... Well, that's the nice thing about music, is you don't necessarily have to understand. I mean, Krovostok, you kind of need to understand the lyrics to get something out of it. But with a lot of music, you don't really need to understand the language per se. And music is always a good way to help you understand the music, or to understand the language more. It's a little bit more advanced. But we have Jahmal TGK with Цветы из Хрущевок. I know that Jahmal has a bit of a history with Gazgolder and all of that, but again, I'm not like an old school hip hop head here. In terms of just the overall sound, that's what I want to talk about, because this is that laid back old school hip hop. It's from the heart of the Urals, from YKB, focused on the day-to-day life, lots of references, samples from classic hip hop tracks like Biggie and Tupac. Just also Jahmal's voice, it's really silky. It's not Barry White, but it's just so deep, and it's just velvety. It's fantastic. There are a few tracks towards the end that lean a little bit more into the reggae sound, which isn't my thing. So personally, I didn't really enjoy that, but that's, again, more of a personal preference. The rest of the beats, they do feel like... Honestly, this feels like the album that you're just supposed to throw on really any time of the year. But since there's a whole song dedicated to having good air conditioning when it's hot and summery outside, this feels like the type of album you throw on a hot summer day when you're in your house with the blinds closed and you're playing, I don't know, GTA San Andreas and eating an ordered pizza and enjoying other things to ingest. It's a very like good old school. Go with the title track. I don't remember. Or like driving around in a wide body Cadillac with the velour seats.
Цветы из хрущевок росли на запрещенке, счастливые и довольные на черно-белой пленке в толстовке. Кассеты с топочкой на полке, на баскетбольном парне и девчонке с ночевкой. Четкие красотки, две мои кроссовки, белые тусовки, летом на парковке. Где мои 17 лет, где-то по гетто неприметно одетый, в темноте шагаю с тренировки.
Я помню время, когда мы были еще детьми.
В нашем детстве это стало традицией.
Рыбчина в машине,
Such like a throwback sound, but I don't know. I mean, like, again, this is often the case. A bit of a love letter to that sound too.
Семья рабочая, гулял до ночи, учиться так не хочется. Непонятно, чем это закончится. И пока сверстники играли в тамагочи, я вечерами в местном клубе веселых и находчивых, месиво на лестничных, скверы, норы кроличьи. Карета скорой помощи, не видно ничего вообще. Где-то поножовщина, некоторым грош цена. Красные трамваи, вдоль обочины поливаем, посвящаем добрые слова им, улыбаемся. Все нормально, в общем-то, пообедал дошиком бывает. Прошлое оживает, лучше не трожь его. Слова небрежно брошены, но за живое задевают. Запорошило, покупали дешево, каждый раз все больше надо. Может быть, ты помнишь меня, как Кощея Тощего? О боже мой, короче, ничего хорошего. Гроши накружили.
I'm not entirely sure, but I do feel like Amili is supposed to sound like the Lil Wayne a milli. Maybe that's just me. But yeah, and then the track about air conditioning in the summertime.
Подождать есть идея. Весь день под кондеем, каждый день на кондей, как на день надеюсь. Спросите где.
This is the anthem for when it gets to be like 33 degrees in Moscow in the summertime, or in any city in Moscow, realistically.
Давай скорее, сюда воды похолоднее. Над пылью городскою, солнце над Москвою, безоблачное небо. Над пылью городскою.
So yeah, really good rap album. Really nice throwback sound from an artist who, as I understand, has not been super active in a minute. It's just got like that really classic sound done very well. Production is top notch all the way through, and yeah, and it's just you like, I don't know. I love to see when, you know, rap artists as they get older don't attempt to chase the same things and like the same themes that they were going after when they were younger, but they kind of just grow up. Like, nobody wants to listen to Drake realistically in 2026 because, like, when you see a 40-year-old man rapping about the same stuff that he was rapping about 2 decades ago, it's just like, what's wrong with you? Grow up. Whereas you have a rap song about basketball, you have a rap song about like your childhood or about an air conditioning unit or like so many good things, and it feels appropriate coming from a grown man. So this is the artist Jahmal TGK, and the album is Цветы из Хрущевок. So nice solid little album, and yeah, we have one left, and it is an interesting one. This is Vodoley GT. I have no idea what the GT stands for. I guess it doesn't really matter. And the album is Voda, which I guess there was only one track I didn't really enjoy. So yes, this is, I guess, the one that I'm going with. Hell of an album artwork too, right? Just fantastic. This is post-punk, and I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense that one of the last albums we're going to talk about for 2025 is post-punk, but it is post-punk with a very strong indie dance streak. The lyrics at times, the lyrics are all over the place. At times they're fixated on the existential nature of being a person, being a human in the span of the universe. But then there's also this just general nonchalance when it comes to things that people get hyper fixated on. So there's like this really kind of not spiritual, but philosophical end of some of the songs. But then on other tracks, it's just super ironic, goes off into oddball ideas like somebody obsessed with collecting metal. And then there's a whole track about him basically falling in love with a woman police officer. musically, it is a very simple formula. It's just very dancey, upbeat, post-punk type stuff, but it's done very well, and it doesn't grow old. Like, I was having just like a good time with it, and that's kind of what I wanted to end with. Something that's got a good energy. Like, I don't know, I just like right off the bat, right? Like, ba-ba-bum. Like, a lot of post-punk feels gloomy, which I get, that's probably why it's pretty popular here a lot of the time, but this has a little bit more of the Gang of Four energy. Got the kind of philosophical, existential stuff going on here. Like, wow, Stardust. But then we get the Lady Cop track. Still has that exact same type of energy.
На улице тебя увидел, скинул, подошел. Дай телефон, отдай телефон. Да все в порядке, отпусти, пойдем в ресторан. Пойдем поедим, ты мне понравилась. Из-за тебя срослись все раны и все трещины. Полицейский женщина, женщина-коп. Вот это хип-хоп. Вот координаты, там лежат цветы. Это тебе, бэйби, мне нужна ты. Для тебя, малышка, никаких прикопов. Сердце тянет, как магнит, к женщине-копу. Полицейский женщина, задержи меня. Ментовская девушка.
Like, what are these lyrics? Fantastic. I do think this is probably my favorite track of the album, but it's a little bit more dialed back, a little bit more serious, but the bass, that rhythm section is just, it's so strong throughout the whole album. Like, it just gets going and it does not stop. I'll cut it off there. Realistically, those three tracks are a pretty strong indicator of what is to be found on the rest of the album, of which there are 13. And it's a good, fun album. It is serious, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. The music it's like a brick house. It just is there. It is solid. From the very first track, it's not like a thrash album where it just is intensity, but it just is steady the whole way through. Really good album. I do understand why. This is one of those albums where I'm just like, yeah, I get why people were putting this in their top picks of the year, because this is the type of album where it feels like you could and I think it came out in the like final quarter of the year, I want to say. I don't remember exactly. I guess I should check real fast. Let me check here real fast. But it came out towards the back half of the year, which I feel like also is a bit of a benefit for some September. So in not the final quarter, but pretty close. Anyway, it's beside the point. This could have come out, I think, in February, and people would still have been remembering it. So yeah, really good album. It's the one I'm going to end with, and I think hopefully this is the final album of 2025 that I'm going to be talking about on these streams. One way or another, this is the album Vada, and the artist the group is Vodoley GT. So we are going to, out of frame a little bit. Well, we're going to talk a little bit here. I'm going to talk about AI. I'm actually going to put the screen back up in just a little bit when we get to that. But yeah, as I said at the beginning, I'm kind of finished with 2025 music. It is possible, especially as various music communities on Telegram and Vkontakte kind of come out of their holiday hibernation. It is possible that people will begin to reference or point out some albums that were perhaps missed in the final week or two of 2025 at the very end of December, which is just a wild time to release something. If that is the case, then I guess we'll be talking about a 2025 album. But I think at that point in time, it really kind of counts as a 2026 album, because nobody's paying attention to music releases for the most part. The final 2 weeks of any year, everybody's trying to do like their recap. Yeah. Anyway, as that's the case, I do hope that there will be a number of new... Actually, there is at least one good new release from January of 2026 that I've got kind of saved away for next week. But we'll get to that then. It's been kind of interesting over the last few weeks, going and hitting some of these that other people spoke highly of. But at the same time, I'm kind of sick of scraping and attempting to understand why some people like that stuff. Like I said, I listened to... We had 10 albums this week. I think I listened to at least 15, maybe 16, maybe even 17, and just a lot of the stuff, it's just like, I don't really get it. So let's talk about AI real fast. I know End of Story mentioned there is a sort of a trend about AI covers of famous songs in a Soviet post-punk style. To be fair, when it comes to AI covers, I noticed this trend, not necessarily with the Soviet post-punk style. I've like there on YouTube. If you go on YouTube, there is a whole category of covers in various styles of the song "Говновоз," if I'm not mistaken, and I think that's kind of a meme, or it was. Just like all of the various different, like in the style of Kino, or in the style of the Beatles, or in the style of Megadeth, and just like whatever you could come up with. And that's all, I guess, like good and well for a laugh and stuff. And it is interesting to see how our perception of AI music changed so quickly, I think, over 2025. Because at the beginning of 2025, most people first encountered those AI covers, and they encountered, I remember Slipknot albums, AI covers in different genres, like 1950s Beatles style, or in 1960s surf rock, or in disco style. And like, it is fun. It is, I like, there is still something to be had of it, in the same way that AI art can be fun and entertaining. But at the end of 2025, here at the beginning of 2026, there's been a lot of discussion about AI art, and it does feel, and I gotta come back to Yandex, because I have been through various music communities paying attention to it. I don't know what the situation is on Spotify. I'm assuming it's also relatively bad, but something like 40%. Actually, I actually had this saved in Telegram, and I'm probably not going to be able to find it now. Nope, I do have it right here. 20% of the top 100 or the top charts in Yandex Music currently are AI tracks. 20% of the top spun albums. You can't really tell them from a real artist. They are being done by the thousands, based on poems, based on stories, memes, things from the internet. According to some statistics, 70 to 80% of all music being uploaded to Yandex currently is AI generated. Dima Bilan just released a track that he did together with an AI artist. The problem ultimately becomes, now here's what I will say. Bandcamp, for those of you who are familiar with Bandcamp has said they are going to ban AI generated music. And for Bandcamp especially, I think that's a great move. Bandcamp is designed to support artists. I honestly don't know, though, how long this can continue. I know it's kind of like, well, it's going to become more and more, but I do feel like at a certain point in time, people are going to push back against it. In the same way that, like, nowadays, if I see a company blatantly, especially if it's a company with a very, very large budget, blatantly pushing advertising that is clearly done with AI, when I understand that they have a multi-million-dollar budget for advertising or whatever, I inherently just do not want to deal with that company anymore. And I do think that as time goes on, people are going to move away from that. Like, the whole reason that we interact with music, for the most part, is because it is a human thing. Like, obviously there is music that we don't really care about. I guess if you listen to ambient music, it's just whatever. But in the same way that when you go to a restaurant, you kind of want somebody cooking the food. I know that there are robot restaurants where they cook it, but by and large, there is still something ultimately human about the creative process, even if it is something that by and large can be by the numbers, right? Making music is very derivative a lot of the times, but when somebody gets together with other individuals or by themselves and puts it all together, there's something about that, right? In the same way that we're going to probably be dealing with AI-generated books in the future. And I think with the book situation, it's going to be a little bit easier because books are definitely one of those things that people are, it's more of a time sink. Like, you invest yourself into it, so you want it to reflect an actual living, breathing human individual. But I don't know. I think this is something I am optimistic in that regard. But I do want to point out this thing with Yandex, and I said that we were going to go back to it. So Yandex has, obviously my vibe is connected to this, but they have AI playlists. And I haven't actually checked on the web version. I've just seen it on my trends. This is where I honestly, am I going to be able to find it now? Do they have it? I swear to God, it's on the phone version. On the phone version, they just straight up, maybe they got rid of it. It was there like a week or two ago. They had an entire section dedicated to, yeah, here it is, AI music, right? Which, on the one hand, I'm kind of glad that they've put these people together, because for me, I now know to just never listen to this. it's not necessarily bad music. If you don't care, you don't care. Like, that's fine if you just want to listen to music. But yeah, I swear to God, they had an entire thing. I probably should have checked on the web version. Yeah, it does not seem like they have. So I guess that's kind of my bad. I could have. Okay. Anyway, if you have the version on your phone, it's a lot easier to find. It's like baked into it there. But I don't know. They've Yandex is actively pushing AI music now, and this is actually one of the big things that I do want to complain about too. And I'm complaining again, but like, I get why Yandex is doing it, because they don't. I assume that they still have to pay royalties to the people, but maybe they don't. I don't know how that. I honestly don't know the legality of paying loyalty or royalties to an artificial artist, like the person who typed the prompt into the computer. Do they get paid for that? I mean, I assume that's why people are doing it, but at the same time, I don't know why Yandex would pay somebody for AI generated music if it's like literally something that anybody could do. I feel like there's a whole bunch of legalities in that situation. Long story short, I don't know. Actively promoting AI music feels like a skeezy thing to do. End of story. Yes, the ruling of Russia by artificial intelligence is it reminds me of the whole Putin speech for the New Year's when people suspected that it might be AI generated. I also very seriously misremembered the ending to Pelevin's Поколение P. I forgot it was all about Sumerian gods. For some reason, in my mind, I always remembered the end of the book where like the president was AI generated or like computer generated, and then there was like, I guess it like kind of is similar, but anyway, I recently rediscovered that my memory of that book is way off. But anyway, I remembered it as being a fake computer generated or like generated in a studio type of government, which in 2025 feels like a better interpretation. But yeah, Karozik's got a point. If they do AI generated Ghost Duma and they base it on the people who are already in there, then we are in for a rough ride. But yeah, Philip K. Dick's got some good stuff too. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. The AI thing is bad. I do like the fact that companies like Bandcamp are pushing back, and I think ultimately the reason that I don't want to say that it's designed to fail, but I do think that one of the things that we in this, I mentioned books, right? Books, people choose, they want to connect with it. Music is also that, where even if it's really easy to determine a fake artist from a real artist. I've gotten pretty good at it. And it's one of those things where I think as AI music becomes more common, artists are going to have to be less mysterious. Where 10 years ago, even like 5 years ago, and let's be real, 20 years ago, when artists first, if they wanted to have some level of secrecy, they could do that. I mean, like, we remember when the Gorillaz came out, right? And yeah, if you knew Damon Albarn, like, and you knew the voice of Blur, then you understood who it was. But if you weren't familiar with it, it was this weird, like, who are these cartoonish characters? And for a long time, the internet has allowed people to have these mysterious personas. It's allowed them to kind of hide their identity and this and that, or even maybe appear to be just like a shadowy figment of the digital realm. as AI becomes more prevalent, I do think we're going to perhaps see the reverse of that, where people are going to attempt to be more flesh and blood. They're going to prove themselves to be individuals because, like, there is going to be some level of wanting to connect. Like, ultimately, we are people. We do want to interact with other people in one form or another. That's probably one of the reasons that those chat bots are so problematic for some people. But yeah, music is, even if we don't have the opportunity of going to concerts, like, that is still ultimately the idea of music, is live performance. It's that as well. And I don't know. We are entering probably a rough patch in the music industry for the next few years, but I do think it's one of those things where, just like Napster and torrents, the industry will push on and artists will adapt and come out. A lot of the challenges that the music industry has faced over the last few decades didn't end up, I don't know, completely destroying anything. It, adapted and has survived. So, yeah, Daft Punk is actually a really good example of the sort of mysterious duo. So, but like, again, we all know Daft Punk are real people because they come out and they play the music. But at the same time, with electronic music too, it is going to be a little bit more like they're going to have to show that they're actually DJing type of thing. It's kind of we don't want, like, in the past it was lip syncing, right? Where people would get up and they, do the pretend like they're singing and not actually be singing at the concerts. And now with AI, especially electronic music, I feel like there's going to have to be like, are they actually DJing up there, or are they pretending to DJ type of thing? But that's, I guess, more of a thing the electronic community. I feel like the electronic community, though, is pretty. They keep a pretty good tabs on who is being legit and who isn't. It's kind of like the metal community in their own way. I feel like music communities too they usually do a pretty good job of cleaning house when necessary. But anyway, yeah, AI, it's an interesting thing. Obviously, it's one of those things that we're going to be, I'm sure, talking and discussing and coming to terms with over the next few years. But to me, it just feels like a new toy that the tech companies are pushing and that people are having fun with right now, and that in the long term, people will continue to use. We will continue to get covers of artists like Grimes in Soviet post-punk style and things like that, because it's just fun and it's kind of silly. But I hope 10 years from now, 15 years from now, people will have kind of moved on from that. I think maybe the one big benefit to all of this is that it might force companies to, well, it could do one of two things. Right now, like, there's the big problem with using other people's music online. Like, you can't use more than 5 seconds. Like, even a few seconds of it on YouTube is going to get your video flagged, right? And either the rules are going to get way more strict, or they're going to have to rethink how they deal with the legalities of people using music. Because if you have AI that can just generate any music that sounds effectively like the protected music, then yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there will be AI stars. There's no getting around it. But I think it depends on how it's done. I already pointed out the Gorillas, right? I think the Gorillas are a pretty good example of a group that has that played with this idea. AI avatars as musical stars in and of themselves aren't bad. If it's an AI generated image with AI generated music, then it feels a little bit cheap. But I guess if you're an idiot who is willing to part with your money, then I guess that's your choice, right? It's kind of one of those things. There were people who invested heavily in fidget spinners also. So, I mean, like, it's your money. You spend it how you want. Yeah. There are some very alarming possibilities for AI, all things considered. But it's a big topic. I'm sure it's something that, as the year continues, well, obviously in the States, there's been a lot of discussion about this with, AI stars, AI musicians topping out Spotify and things like that. We haven't seen that here in Russia yet, but maybe 2026 is the year with that. Isus is pretty good. There's actually on Twitch there is also a kind of an AI generated Jesus that just spouts out random platitudes and words of wisdom type stuff. But yeah, in Russian it does work a lot better. Isus. But anyway. But yeah. I'm sure we'll be discussing this more over the coming months. But as it is, I'm going to wrap it up. Yeah. Nice. Very active discussion. A lot of nice little chit chat going on, which is always fun. I will Joe's Hill there. AI is one-eyed Jesus. Joe's Hill there recommended I check out, I don't remember what the name of the Ziga book. I will get on that. And then with Agatha Christie, I guess if there is a specific album, let me know. So this next week, there will be some new music, but I will have a little bit of time to check out some classics in the eyes of various people. But everyone have a good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of the day it is where you are watching. I'll be back next Thursday at 10 p.m. I'll do the news and just general Russian chatter for anyone who is interested on Sunday at 9 p.m. and then Wednesday at 9 p.m. Moscow time. Y'all take care of yourselves. I will see you when I see you. And until then, пока-пока.